It's crazy hot outside. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I know that we have a scout troop, do we not, that is going to come up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. So why don't we start with our scouts? Come on up.
Color guard attention. Color guard advance.
I'm in the way.
Color guard, prepare to post the colors. Post the colors. Please join Supervisor Foley in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Come on up. All right. Good to see you.
Hello, I'm Katrina Foley, County Supervisor representing the 5th District. Welcome to the 5th District, and thank you for joining us here today. Thank you, Congressman, for all your work. I know that we depend on our congressman for helping us to get grants into our community and make sure that we protect our democracy. So thank you so much for being here. Please say with me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guard regroup. Color guard dismiss. Audience at ease.
Good job. Thank you. All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that more than you know. And at least one of those scouts, I know who you are. I saw you back there, a good friend of ours. And for all the others, thank you for joining us today. I want to thank the City of Laguna Niguel. You've got just some beautiful, beautiful community facilities here. It's truly an honor. And we're joined by Stephanie Otto, who's a fantastic council member. Give it up for Stephanie, everybody. And you just met the incredible supervisor for this community. I'm so honored and grateful to have such a great partner. Give it up again for Supervisor Katrina Foley. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank our Orange County Sheriff's deputies. Where are they? They were here earlier. They're around here somewhere. But if they can hear me, thank you guys. I really appreciate the work you do for the community. And I want to thank our incredible team. I see a number of our team members here who do so much work every single day on behalf of this community. Can members of our team please raise their hands, and can you give them a great round of applause as well? Kyle tells me to speak into the microphone. Okay, I can be loud, folks, trust me. So I just want to thank everybody again for taking time out of your day and for being such great constituents. I can tell you, for those that I have not met before or I don't know, my wife and I love South Orange County. I grew up in South OC and went to Saddleback Valley schools, and Christy and I are raising our two kids, 13 and 11 years old. They're in Capital Unified Schools. So both of my kids starting 6th and 8th grade, so they're both at the same school again, which makes me very happy. But point being is that this community is our home, and I care very deeply about South OC, and I know you do as well. The other thing that you may not know about me is that I first ran for Congress in 2018, and we were honored to win, and we've been representing parts of South Orange County and North County, San Diego ever since, having been first elected in 2020 and then re-elected in 2020, 2022, 2024. Every 2 years, you get the hint. But one thing for me that is really important is consistent communication, and I pledged as a candidate to do at least a monthly Town Hall, and tonight is our 126th Town Hall. Very proud of that. And I'm proud of that because it's a lot of work from our team. Thank you guys. Thanks to everybody for the questions that you've already submitted. And also, you know, it's just important for you to know this is your seat. It is your district. It is your government. And I work for you. And I wish that all of my colleagues would embrace, you know, that same sort of thing. And you know, kind of dumbfounds me when folks won't do events like this, regardless of the circumstances or politics or who's in power or whatnot. But I hope that it encourages more of you to expect that from all of your elected officials. And you've got two great ones here who embody transparency and accountability. And that's what we should want out of our elected officials, regardless of their level. The other is that I believe very strongly that public service is fundamental to our nation, and doing something greater than just serving your own self-interest is really what inspired me, motivated me to get involved in public service. And I think it's about delivering results, not about scoring political points on whatever the issue of the day might be. I'm very proud of the fact that in 6.5 years in office, we've gotten 34 bills signed into law by presidents of both parties. We had 16 signed into law by Trump the first time. We had 18 signed into law by Biden. I hope we have a lot more signed into law in this coming administration. I have to tell you, it's easier when your party controls the House and Senate, but nonetheless, we're going to do everything we can to continue to proceed. And then resources to the community. I'm very proud of the fact that since 2019, we've delivered more than $1 billion with a B in federal funds back to our district. And thank you. I want to encourage everybody on our website at levin.house.gov. We have an interactive map where you can click on any of the cities. You can look at the map and then point to any of the cities, and you'll see what funds we've been able to deliver to Laguna Niguel or Dana Point, San Juan Capistrano, whatever the community may be. But here in Laguna Niguel, it's over $10 million for sewer infrastructure. It's $500,000 for safer bike and pedestrian routes, and it's $200,000 for roadway safety improvements. And I'm particularly proud of that because we only started representing Laguna Niguel after just the last couple of terms, because every 10 years there's redistricting. Of course, that's, you know, we'll see what happens with that. But my point being is that I have not represented Laguna Niguel the entire tenure of my service. I'm also proud there's something called the Center for Making at the University of Virginia, and they have ranked me consistently among the top 5% of lawmakers. They do a deep dive, and not just that you've gotten, you know, post offices named, nothing wrong with naming post offices, but that the work that you do actually has meaning and substance and value for the constituents that you serve. And then there's another center, the Lugar Center, named after the late Senator Richard Lugar of Indiana, in partnership with Georgetown University, that measures bipartisanship. And I'm consistently in the top quartile, the top fourth of most bipartisan members of Congress, and I'm very proud of that. I don't believe that good ideas have a party label, and I do believe that at the end of the day, you may not agree with me on everything that I say. My wife doesn't agree with me on everything that I say, but you'll always know where I stand. And those of you that have watched me these last number of years, I think, know that. With that, I want to turn to a number of events in the news. It's been a busy time, wouldn't you say? So I want to turn to a few things. And first, I want to address some foreign policy, which specifically is the ongoing conflicts both in Russia, Ukraine, as well as the Middle East. I have said now all along that Vladimir Putin is a thug. He is trying to crush a democratic nation in Ukraine that is fighting to defend its freedom. We just saw him Putin welcomed onto American soil in Alaska, which troubled me, and I would hope would trouble those who are invested in America's strength and independence against dictators and authoritarians. And specifically, I'm thinking about my own grandfather, who served as part of the greatest generation in World War II. I think about his legacy of service and sacrifice and what he thought it meant to stand up for American values and to fight against authoritarianism. And I don't believe that he and the greatest generation sacrificed so much only for us to waver now in the face of aggression from someone like Vladimir Putin. So you have my firm commitment to continue to support humanitarian and security and economic assistance for Ukraine and, frankly, for our NATO allies. Standing with our allies protects America's security and, in my view, prevents a wider war that would cost us far more, both in lives and in dollars. I also think that Putin is stringing us along while continuing to strike Ukrainian cities and civilians at the same time that he's making empty promises. And every day we hesitate gives him more ground. And I'll also say this, when America drifts apart from our allies instead of leading with our allies, I think it weakens our security here at home and undermines our interests. As for the Middle East, I said in December of 2023, you remember the October 7th, 2023 attack, I said at the next public-facing town hall like this, back in December of 2023, and I've been clear ever since, that Israel needs new leadership. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has put his own political survival ahead of the safety of his people, and he must go. And Israel should hold an election. It's a democracy. It should hold an election. Netanyahu should be defeated if he decides to run again. I'll also say Hamas must be out of power as well. So I support, as I know so many of you do, a ceasefire tied to the immediate release of hostages held by Hamas. The ceasefire for hostages deal that was agreed to in January. I don't know if you remember that, because it seems like so much has happened, but there was a ceasefire agreement that was agreed to in January. It should have never ended. I also support unfettered humanitarian aid to Gaza. And thank you. I'm a co-sponsor of a new House resolution, literally just in the last day, calling for urgent delivery of aid to civilians. So I have heard from so many constituents about this, and I want you to know that I hear you. I also will never give up on the long-term prospect of a two-state solution where both the Palestinians and the Israelis can live in security and dignity. But for far too long, the leadership on both sides has failed. Netanyahu government is choosing to invade Gaza City. That is sparking over 1 million Israelis in protest in just the last couple of days. I stand with the values of many of those protesters. And Hamas, meanwhile, continues to hold hostages and continues to take actions directly detrimental to their own people. So far too many civilians are caught in the crossfire, and the war must end, and we need a ceasefire. So let me turn now to domestic affairs. It's a lot, by the way, that's a lot of foreign policy for the intro to a town hall. But there's a lot going on. So I want to talk about the Republican budget that passed in July. You probably signed a bill that adds to the deficit, big time, $3.4 trillion over the next decade, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. Our national debt is now over $37 trillion, the entirety of the Department of Defense budget. And that is just robbing our children and our grandchildren's future. I'll also say, I've said this many times, if there were some overarching national purpose, if we were dealing with a, for example, once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, I don't know, or if we could cure cancer, I would say it'd be worth spending the money. But I see no overarching great national cause in this bill other than advancing tax cuts that disproportionately benefit those at the top. Let me dig into this a little bit more. Again, deficits matter, debt matters, not as abstract accounting, but because it squeezes out investments that make this country strong every dollar in additional debt we accumulate. And it'll fall hardest on your children, grandchildren, and their kids if we don't act responsibly right now. Now, on health care, it's important that you know what this bill will do, and you're going to hear from some experts on this. But this law strips coverage from roughly 15 million Americans. Again, those aren't my numbers. Look it up for yourself, including over 2 million Californians. The law guts Medicaid, which is known as Medi-Cal in California, and it slashes support for the Affordable Care Act, known as Covered California. That means that premiums are going to rise for Californians and for Americans. In fact, very shortly, and I've heard it already may have happened, and we'll talk more about this, everybody on ACA plans in California and elsewhere are going to start receiving notices in the mail telling them that their health care premiums are going to go up by 50, 60, 70% in some cases. It could be, I've heard anecdotes, it could be even worse than that. For families, we're talking about thousands of dollars, in some cases, certainly hundreds of dollars every single year. And those aren't just numbers. Those are families right here in Laguna Niguel who risk losing their coverage. It's seniors who aren't going to be able to go to the doctor that they trust. It's veterans. By the way, do we have any veterans in the audience tonight? Can we give them a round of applause, please? So we should be standing up for our veterans, not further undermining their care. And we can talk about the VA as well. I served on the VA committee for 6 years. I now serve on the subcommittee on appropriations that funds the VA and funds our military construction and funds a lot of other things too. But it hurts our veterans. It hurts the kids who are going to go without checkups. It hurts the most vulnerable. It just does. And I want to be very clear about this. I am determined to work with anybody to fix this. And particularly on the Affordable Care Act, as you're going to hear, those premiums are going to go up because those premium tax credits are going away. And the Republicans in their budget bill decided that that was the direction that they wanted to go. And I want to work with them to try to fix this. I really mean that. We're going to find out if they want to do it or not. The other thing is on energy. We all want reliable, clean, and affordable energy, right? I certainly do. And unfortunately, the budget bill that they passed repeals tax credits that are saving people money on their energy bills. And the average is about $415 a year is the additional cost because of the elimination of these tax credits. By the way, many of them I fought very hard for in past years to try to bring costs down and try to promote, again, reliable, clean, and affordable energy. We have 80 million Americans, think of this, 80 million Americans struggling to pay their energy bills right now. And unfortunately, what Congress and what the President has just done is going to make that worse. Why is that? Why is it happening? It is happening because big oil does not like competition from cleaner, cheaper alternatives. Simple as that. So if you kneecap the tax provisions that help the development of those cleaner, cheaper alternatives, good for big oil, bad for the average American consumer. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. Google it, do your analysis, do your research, and you'll reach, I believe, a similar conclusion. So the end result of this bill, all these things that will happen, we haven't even talked about food, but it impacts CalFresh, SNAP, known as CalFresh in California, meaning the most vulnerable children may not have enough to eat, and seniors and veterans and others that rely on food assistance may not have enough to eat. So why are they doing this? Again, what's the point of doing this? Well, the permanent provisions in the new bill are the tax cuts for the wealthiest and the biggest corporations. There are other provisions in there. I will say this. There are certain pieces of that bill that mirror things that I have supported in the past, like increasing the state and local tax deduction, which this bill does to $40,000 for those making under $500,000 a year. It increases the standard deduction. It increases deductions for seniors. It has provisions on no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, which are not designed the right way, not how I would have designed them, but nonetheless are general concepts that I support. But the overarching reason for those provisions is to give a temporary sugar high, while the permanent provisions to gut things like Medicaid, to end subsidy or premium tax credit for the Affordable Care Act, or for nutrition assistance, those things are permanent. And that's basically what we're talking about. Tax cuts that go to people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, you name it. In order to do that, they're using the most vulnerable as the punching bag in all of this. I believe it's morally wrong. I come to this from a place of faith as well, and I just believe it's morally wrong. So the next non-controversial topic I want to talk about is immigration. Immigration. So very much on my mind and very much seeing and hearing and experiencing what's happening in our own communities here in the district, throughout Orange County and Southern California. I want to go back to what President Trump said a lot during the campaign and has said since. He said that deportations should focus on, his words, the bad ones. You've heard that, right? The bad ones. Promising the priority would be violent offenders. And guess what? I agree with that. If someone is violent, if they're a drug dealer, a gang member, if they're a human trafficker, if they're truly a violent threat to our national security or our public safety, they should be prioritized for deportation. They should get due process. Their claims should be adjudicated consistent with the laws of the land. But yes, they should be prioritized for deportation. I think most everybody agrees with that. But what is happening in practice is far different. What is happening is that Stephen Miller, you know who Stephen Miller is. If you don't, you've heard of him. If you don't know who he is, Google him. He's the White House key person on immigration. He believes that you set an arbitrary quota, and the quota that they've set is 3,000 per day to deport, to basically create a situation where ICE agents are incentivized. The more people they deport, the better they're going to do. And if they're in the bottom 10%, this is what the public reporting has said, and I've heard no repudiation of it. If the bottom 10% don't perform, it's like, think about the parking enforcement folks. If they don't get so many tickets, they're going to be written up and probably not have a job for very long. That's basically what they're doing, keeping a scoreboard with deporting people. And what's happening as a result of that is they're going after all sorts of nonviolent folks. They're going after people in areas that I consider to be really important to our community, whether it's near schools, whether it's near churches, whether it's near hospitals, or certainly in workplaces. I think we've all heard and seen all those stories. And if it's about meeting a number, rather than actually going after violent folks and making our country safer, making our national security stronger, I don't think that's what most people want to see. So I want to tell you one story about a family here in Laguna Niguel that you may or may not have heard about. Gladys and Nelson Gonzalez. They came to this country in the 80s, and they lived in this community for most of the time here in Laguna Niguel. They raised their children, their 3 kids, and their grandkids here, all of them in Southern California, to my knowledge. They had no violent criminal history, far from it. The Gonzalezes never had so much as a traffic ticket in the decades that they were here. Nelson Gonzalez worked as a phlebotomist, and Gladys Gonzalez had a variety of jobs working with kids. And moreover, they voluntarily, every year, went to every immigration appointment that they had for 25 plus years. And it was never a problem until it was a problem. When earlier this year they went to their appointment on time in Santa Ana, when without any communication with their family, without any notice, they were deported to Colombia without really any reason other than, again, they had a notice of removal from a judge, and that was that. And that was that. So for me, that outcome, and outcomes like that, doesn't match the vision of who we are as a nation. It doesn't match the vision that brought my grandparents to this country, for example, when they worked very hard. So you would not know from looking at me, few of you know this, my grandparents on my mom's side came from Mexico, right? Obvious, right? And my grandpa was 15 years old, and my grandma was 5 years old. In fact, we just went through the ancestry records with my mom, and we just saw how they came and when they came. And they worked incredibly hard. They did everything the right way. They went through all the normal legal process, and eventually at age 50, my grandpa became an American citizen, and my grandma was a permanent resident until she passed away at the age of 93, back a number of years ago. And the question that I always ask myself today, when I see what's happening, is would they, today, want to come to the United States of America? That land for them that provided so much opportunity, where they were able to have 4 children, including my mom. Again, my grandparents didn't even graduate high school. They came here, they spoke no English, they had no money. They built a successful small business, renting jukeboxes. You remember what jukeboxes are, right? My kids don't even know, but the worlds are jukeboxes. And they wound up having an incredible life and 11 grandkids. I'm the youngest of 11 grandkids, and I am a member of the House of Representatives. That's the way it's supposed to work in the United States of America. Immigration reform. And we have reintroduced a bill called the Dignity Act. 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats. And we've come together and we've reintroduced this. And they're getting criticized from their side, and I'm getting criticized from our side. And the bill is not what any of us would write ourselves, but it is what we could achieve, I believe, working together. And what it says is you need a secure border. And guess what? We do. I was among those critical of the last administration in the first 2.5, 3 years because we really did have big challenges. I go down every quarter to the southern border, and it was unacceptable what was happening in 2020, 2021, particularly between ports of entry. But the answer for me is not for the pendulum to swing all the way to cruelty. That is not where the pendulum should go. I want to see, and I think we can still achieve, reform where you achieve security, but you also achieve humanity, where you treat people with dignity. That's literally the name of the bill. So we would create a dignity program where if you basically, avoid any serious crimes, pay your taxes, stay here, you're a good contributing citizen to our economy and our society, you can stay, and there's a path for you. And you don't have to hide. You can work, you can pay taxes, you can be proud to be part of our fabric. That's how it should be, in my view. And I'm not going to stop until that bill becomes law. It also protects our dreamers, and it is a serious bipartisan step forward. And we've got to continue to get it done. Thank you. And I want to talk for a second about the looming government shutdown. That's like the gift that keeps on giving, right? Every few months you hear the looming government shutdown. But the reality, I'm on the Appropriations Committee. The government runs out of money on September 30, unless one of two things happen. Unless we pass all the appropriations bills magically, which ain't going to happen, folks, ain't going to happen, just because the process has become seriously partisan in a very unprecedented way. Or option B is what's called a continuing resolution. If you're not familiar with that, it means you basically punt. You fund the. It's no way to run the government. It's no way to run any enterprise, just to keep punting and punting and punting as the debt accumulates and as we jam our agencies and our military so that they have no flexibility or freedom in order to spend money in any new way other than how they've been spending it all along. It's a horrible, awful way to run the government. But what's also awful is that if Congress doesn't act by the end of September, Social Security checks could be delayed, mail could slow, airports could see longer lines, passport renewals could drag for months or longer. So none of us want to see that. At the same time, what concerns me and what I'm going to fight for is we've got Russ Vought. Anybody heard of Russ Vought? He's the OMB director. He's the most powerful guy in Washington you've never heard of, and he's one of the key authors of Project 2025. Again, you don't have to take it from me. Go Google it yourself. And what Russ Vought, V-O-U-G-H-T, what he has said time and again, basically is that he doesn't respect Congress as a co-equal branch of government. Article 1 of the Constitution says that Congress, only Congress, has the power of the purse, the power to decide how to spend or not to spend federal dollars. Not the president, certainly not the courts. But what Russ Vought has said is he doesn't much care about that. He thinks that Congress can appropriate the funds, and then the administration can decide whether or not to spend the money based on their own priorities and principles. And that is flat out wrong. Supreme Court in the past has said it's wrong. Congress has passed something called the Impoundment Control Act back in the 1970s when Richard Nixon tried to impound certain funds. So what I'm going to do is make sure that part of any agreement to fund the government, number one, is that we've got to reaffirm only Congress has the power of the purse, that the power of the purse will be respected by the administration. And it's bigger than politics. If we allow Russ Vought to run the country, folks, we're in real trouble. And every elected official, regardless of their party, that took that oath to actually do their job, they're not doing their job at that point. Second of all, what I want to see very practically is the Affordable Care Act premiums that were not allowed to continue as a result of this Republican budget bill. I want those to continue. For instance, if we say We're going to fund the government another 3 months. We should demand 1 year of ACA tax credits in order to prevent 5 million people, are the estimates, 5 million people would fall off the health insurance without those tax credits. It's completely unacceptable. Again, I'll work with anybody, Republican or Democrat, to keep the government open. But keeping the government open by itself is not enough. We've got to protect affordable health care. We've got to defend the constitutional power of the purse, because it's not about Washington. It's about making sure that seniors, veterans, families here and everywhere have the resources to basically to get by. That's what it's about, just being able to get by. So before we move to the questions, you're going to hear from a few experts about the budget law's impact on healthcare, food assistance, and more. And first, I want to welcome Carolina Sandoval from Covered California to discuss health premiums. Come on up. So how are we going to do this? Can we all sit up here?
If you want, yeah, they can all three.
Okay, next, let's also bring up Liz Andrade. Why don't you all sit right here? We're going to bring up Liz Andrade, Executive Director of 211 Orange County, to talk about the budget law's impact on food assistance. Thank you for being here. And finally, I want to welcome Brian Helulin from Providence St. Joseph Hospital in Orange to discuss how hospitals and healthcare delivery will be impacted. So we're going to hear from all of them. They are here to take questions related to their areas of expertise. And so I hope that we get some. But with that, I want to start with Carolina. Take it away. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Please.
I do have some notes because there's some very critical items that I don't want to miss, but thank you so much. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you for inviting Covered California on sharing some very critical updates and insights. I do want to go over some of the challenges, but also some of the opportunities that we have ahead of us. I'm going to dive into some of the key points that illustrate where Covered California is today, the risks that we're facing, and the steps that Covered California is taking to support consumers in California. I do want to start us off on a good note, though. I do want to highlight that California has made great progress in reducing the number of uninsured people. Since 2013, we've dropped to just 6.4% of uninsured, and that's the lowest in the nation. Also, this year in 2025, Covered California reached a record enrollment with nearly 2 million people signing up for health insurance. And I want to note that this was possible because of the financial help that the congressman alluded to from both the state and the federal government. A big part of that success came from the enhanced tax credits that have already been mentioned over and over. And these tax credits were passed by Congress in 2021 through the American Rescue Plan. This made health insurance cheaper for low-income families, but for the first time, this also gave affordability to middle-income families. These tax credits are saving Californians $2.5 billion, with many paying just as little as $10 each month for coverage. However, as the congressman alluded, these tax credits are set to expire at the end of this year unless the Congress acts to extend them or to make them permanent. Without them, and I am going to, just call out some number here because I want us to put this in perspective. Without these tax credit, many people are going to see significant premiums increasing. On average, premiums would increase by $125 per month, and more than 161,000 people could lose their financial help altogether. And that's just here in California. Certain groups are especially going to be hit harder than others. People earning less than $40,000, if you think about that, people that are already low income, these are folks that are earning less than $40,000 a year could see their costs double. Middle income earners might have to pay the full price of insurance, and that's roughly around $942 a month. Self-employed people, who are one of every 4 consumers, with average $131 per month per savings. And older adults aged 55 to 64 could face costs, listen to this, as high as $1,400 per month. Communities of color would also see major increases. And I do want to note, Covered California has been actively working to inform lawmakers and bring this dialogue to Washington, D.C., both our own individual efforts, but also with other state-based marketplaces. And we're trying to illustrate the importance of extending these tax credits and showing them the impacts, the real impacts that this is going to have on families across California. Also, I do want to note, Covered California recently announced the projected premium rate increases of 10.3% for 2026. And there's several different factors that are driving the 10.3%, but such factors include the rising costs of healthcare, pharmacy costs, and of course the uncertainty around federal policies. And this is including the expiration of the enhanced tax credits at the end of 2025. I also want to note that consumers who choose to shop outside of Covered California for a mirrored product are also going to feel this in the increases. So starting next month, and I know Congressman already mentioned this, Covered California consumers will begin to receive notices about their 2026 plan year. These notices are going to include gross premium for their upcoming year and a walkthrough of the renewal process. The point of these notices is to educate consumers of the upcoming changes and the impact directly to them. While the future of the federal enhanced tax credits does remain uncertain, California has allocated $190 million towards a state affordability program to support Covered California consumers. The funding, regardless of the extension of the enhanced tax credits, they're going to be deployed in the best manner with the consumers in mind. I also want to just jump over and talk about other important federal changes that are hampering access and affordability to consumers. The new federal laws and the rules are really making it difficult to keep and access insurance. This includes the passage of the H.R. 1, nicknamed the One Big Beautiful Bill that was mentioned earlier, and the changes to CMS rules. Together, and this is a figure that's been daunting to me, this could cause, the changes with these two bills combined could cause 660,000 folks, specific Covered California members, to lose their coverage. Starting in 2026, we should all expect increases going up. And new red tape will make it harder to stay insured. Some of the things that came about from the new federal rules and the laws is that, for example, automatic re-enrollment will end. Fewer immigrants will qualify for tax credits. There is a shortened open enrollment period starting in 2027. This ends eligibility for DACA recipients this year at the end of this month. And there is the elimination of extra time for consumers to resolve income discrepancies or issues. And this also removes coverage for gender-affirming care. So with all that, and even with all of these challenges, Covered California is still working hard to protect consumers as best as we can. We're actively working with government and other community partners to inform people just like yourselves on these upcoming changes to help you and your families, friends, navigate through what's happening. We're also preparing a strong outreach and retention campaign for 2026. Even though, let's say we have to pivot if the enhanced tax credits get extended, we still want to make sure that we're educating consumers on the changes that are coming. And also, as we approach open enrollment, which is just around the corner, consumers can begin shopping and comparing plans starting October 15th. Open enrollment this year will continue to last through January 31st, and I want to encourage everyone who's uncertain about your plans, has any questions, to reach out and seek support. We have certified and licensed agents here in your community. We have certified navigators, and you can always call Covered California to get support. So in summary, even though the federal changes are creating challenges, Covered California stays committed to helping Californians stay insured. We'll keep pushing forward for affordable coverage and provide the support that people are needing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolina. Great job. Great job. Thank you, Carolina. So I want to repeat one thing that Carolina said that I think gets lost in translation sometimes about this bill. I have had some folks tell me, well, I'm not on Medi-Cal, so what do I need to worry? Or I don't have Covered California, why should I care? Or if they're on Covered California, say, well, I don't get those tax credits. I make too much to get those tax credits. Why should I care? You're missing the script. The cost increases impact everybody. Everybody. And how did you say mirrored plans from the, yeah, that means if you have health care, your costs go up, okay? And also, we're gonna hear from our hospitals, guess what? It's gonna hurt them too. It's gonna hurt Medicare as well, called budget sequestration, which means that every year Medicare is gonna get less money. That means our hospitals are gonna have less resources to be able to deliver services. It means our doctors are gonna be asked to do more for less. It just stinks. If you care about your health care, you're going to be impacted by this. And if you're on Covered California and you're not a recipient of those tax credits, you are still impacted when those tax credits go away because all of a sudden everyone's coverage gets more expensive. Does that make sense? It's a key point that I think is being missed in all of this. So next I want to hear from Liz Andrade, Executive Director of 211 Orange County, about the budget law's impact on food assistance. I apologize for not talking more about food in the open. Thank you.
Food is important. Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you to your staff. You all have done an amazing job at bringing everyone together, and thank you all for being here and listening to the impacts that we expect to happen. My name is Elizabeth Andrade. I serve as the Executive Director for 211 Orange County, which is a key service at Orange County United Way. Orange County United Way has been in our community for over 100 years. 211 Orange County serves as our virtual front door for social services. That means that for Orange County, we receive nearly 500,000 requests for services every single year. 12% of those now are for food assistance. We rely on a network of 1,100 service providers throughout Orange County to ensure that when someone contacts 211 Orange County United Way, that we can move them into care. And what we're expecting to continue to see are those numbers going up, continuing to ensure that people are navigated to the appropriate resources. And one of the ways that we currently are addressing that need is by enrolling into CalFresh, or federally known as SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. The changes that we're expecting will not only impact us at the state level at the tune of $1.7 billion, but locally 5 to 6% of that. We are going to not only experience folks having less of an opportunity to enroll in those benefits, but also more hoops in being able to renew those benefits. And so just to put it into perspective for you, the majority of the people that are calling 211 for support and for care, they're at the 200% or below federal poverty line. So that means for a family of 4, they're making $61,000 or under. So if you can imagine anyone in your network, anyone that you know who's making $61,000 in Orange County to support a family of 4, it doesn't go a long way here once you factor in housing and support. So that family of 4 would be eligible today to receive about $300 worth of supplemental nutrition assistance program or CalFresh. Think about the last time you were at Costco. How much was your grocery bill? How much did you spend? How far would $300 go? But for a family who's making $62,000, that is the difference between their ability to pay for their electricity bill, or make their rent payment, or support their children needing new shoes. And so it has a devastating impact on the number of families and seniors and individuals who are receiving that assistance today. That family of 4 may be working, obviously receiving earned income, and they will need to recertify every 6 months. Right now they recertify once a year. They will have to continuously be engaged with our social services office locally to ensure that they meet the requirements and the eligibility so that they can continue to do that. And just to get personal on this, because it is a bit personal for me, my mom worked a night shift and then a double shift when she had to. That would mean that she would lose out on sleeping or caring for her children in order to go to the social services office to be recertified. And so the real impact that these changes are having on the families who are receiving care in order to make ends meet, to support their families, again, will have some severe impacts. And for the children in those families who are relying on that care, on that additional support, they will go without. And so where a child currently is receiving free or reduced lunch, those meals may be their only meals. And so I hate to use the scare tactic. That's not my style. I'm very balanced. But we are expecting and preparing at 211 on how we will navigate these families to care when those benefits are no longer, when they're no longer eligible or those benefits are no longer available for them. And so I want to touch on the Orange County Hunger Alliance. The Hunger Alliance is a bright spot in Orange County. It is a group of the 2 food banks along with the Bound Food Care who are working together to, in essence, do more with less and ensure that we are moving rescued food, so food that would normally go into the dumpster, that it's rescued from the food pantries and put back into the hands of people who need it. So there is a demand currently on the food pantry network in Orange County that will increase. So again, doing more with less, those food pantries will continue to need to work together in a heightened way. We also are working as the backbone organization of the administrative agency for a group called South Orange County for All. And that group is ensuring that the needs of the South Orange County residents are demonstrated and supported to bring visibility. So if I can leave you with one last point, and it is 211, if you haven't heard of it, now you know. It is a 3-digit dialing code. It serves as the social services front door for care. And we have the data and the impact. So one of the things I admire so much about Congressman Levin is his detail on data and how we expect to track, measure, and respond to the needs of the community. And 211 is a source for that, and will continue to be a source for that. So lots of information and stats and figures, but the Food Pantry Network, if you are engaged, they rely on volunteers. Please continue to do what you can. There will be a heightened need and demand. If you know of people who need support, direct them to 211. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Wonderful job. Thank you, Liz. One thing that I always say, and it's backed by data, so thank you for that, is there's very few federal dollars that are better spent than making sure kids have enough to eat. So all the statistical data, the analysis out there, again, go Google it yourself, is that when you invest in the outcomes of children, particularly in early childhood, and they have enough to eat, and they're having a positive environment where they can learn and they can mature, you're talking about a 7 to 10 to 1 economic multiplier in terms of the long-term productivity of that young person, in terms of their income, their incarceration rate down the road, all of it. Their positive societal outcome is exponentially improved when you make that small investment and make sure they have enough to eat. And what you said was really profound, because I was just talking to my son. He's 13, and he goes to one of the Capital Unified schools here. And just the other days, a couple days back, and he's putting all these snacks in his backpack. And thanks to Capital Unified, everybody gets food. You get a nutritious meal when you go to school. And I said to him, for some of your classmates, that is the best meal of the day. And he said to me, for some, it could be the only meal. So he's 13. So that's just the truth. That's on the ground evidence right there from a 13-year-old who sees it. I finally want to talk about our hospitals. This is critically important. And Brian Helulin from Providence St. Joe in Orange, thank you for being here to discuss how hospitals and healthcare delivery systems will be impacted, and very sadly, they're going to be impacted. And it's not so good. But Brian's great. Give it up. Thank you. Thank you,
I do need these. In addition to being the CEO of St. Joe's Orange, some of you may be wondering why I'm in South County. My role is also the CEO over Providence Orange County High Desert. So I do have 5 hospitals, and 4 of them we're blessed to have in Orange County, and being Mission Hospital here in Mission Viejo, as well as Mission Laguna Beach. So this has been one of my weeks. I've spent a lot of time in South County this week. We did a beam signing at our new location in Rancho Mission Viejo just yesterday as well. But you're going to hear some consistency here with the previous ladies that spoke before me, and hopefully it really does resonate. HR 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, includes $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid at the ACA. The cuts contained in HR 1 do threaten the sustainability of the healthcare system, and the consequences of these cuts, as said by everybody, they are absolutely going to impact everybody. The entire system of healthcare will be impacted in all of our communities, not just those that currently rely on Medicaid as their coverage. One of the other roles that I'm fortunate to have, I'm also on the board of CalOptima, elected on the board and representing all the hospital executives in Orange County, and that sworn in to advocate for the members in our communities that are on CalOptima or the Medi-Cal product for Orange County. So I spent a lot of time advocating and hearing stories in this particular space, and the fear and the concern is real, and we talked to a lot of members very much specifically. One of the things that Carolina referenced, we hear so much of the higher level things that will be impacted and change, but the limitless things that will be impacted at the other levels, the navigation of healthcare that was mentioned, the auto application process that's part of it, the dollars that are spent making up for being able for us as providers to be there to help our patients navigate the healthcare system are going to exponentially increase. Healthcare costs across the country will significantly be impacted, reducing the access to healthcare, essential care, increasing wait times. Those are some of the things that really domino and affect everybody, addressing pressure to what I think everybody feels is an already strained healthcare system. These cuts will be coupled with the increase in the number of people without health insurance, further stressing the safety net that healthcare system. That's one of the things that hospitals really do feel. I appreciate the support for hospitals, especially when we're so proud to be a not-for-profit Catholic healthcare system. We see everybody. And we talk to patients. I have patients that are coming in and they are part of another network. Their primary care physician is part of another health system. And when they go seek care in other parts of the continuum, they're told to come to Providence. And that's part of one of the things we're escalating is why are these patients being told to come to another community hospital who's also in the network when they're not even assigned to us? And it's because of that manipulation of the healthcare system. They know that we'll see them. And the reimbursement isn't there for other systems that are looking to pass those patients on to somebody like us. Estimates from the Congressional Joint Economic Committee indicate that 63,302 people in this community, districts 47 and 49, will lose their health care coverage. As people lose access to coverage, care will be delayed, access to vital services will be restricted, and costs will rise for everyone. We saw this as post the pandemic. Different reasons why care was delayed, and it definitely is a delay, whether that's 4 to 6 to 9 months of a care being avoided. It does then ultimately build up, and then that demand increases for how do we see those patients that potentially deferred or delayed care for that period of time. We talked about undocumented. We're already seeing that. The fear of people coming to get health care because they don't want to be picked up. Before we saw the raids, we were seeing it upstream where we have a very large dialysis patient population in this particular demographic as well, and they were stopping bringing their loved ones with them to their appointments because they were afraid that they were putting their loved ones at risk. So now they're coming in what we see as a healing environment, coming by themselves instead of with their loved ones supporting them, just for the fear that is associated with being out in those high-risk areas that the congressman mentioned. As the uninsured population booms, hospitals will see an increase in uncompensated care. Probably accurate to say we're going backwards, in that aspect, where as the Affordable Care Act, at least there's reimbursement, but now we're going to be going back to a significant amount of uncompensated care. Patients will see all that rising cost. How we then and cost other areas. One of the specific areas I want to call it is our physicians. One of the things, the biggest thing we have sometimes is getting our physicians to cover our emergency rooms. It's a major burden, 20 factual changes or increased payment to help supplement for them to see patients because at the specific of rising costs in healthcare. If we've got to pay physicians to cover our emergency room, that cost is coming from somewhere. Reductions in funding will exacerbate existing provider shortages and reduce the number of providers willing to accept Medicaid patients. We've seen that, a little bit of what I just talked about in the emergency rooms, but we also see that in the ambulatory space where certain physicians stop accepting those payers themselves. Or that follow-up care, they may see them in the emergency department, but that follow-up care that's needed post that emergency department visit is impacted. Providence is committed to serving all, so we can expect an increase in demand with longer wait times. That all part that I referenced, we are very, very proud of that. We're not going to change that aspect of who we are. We're going to always take care of everybody, and we know we're different in that space. And that's part of what we advocate for. I've had my days that I spend in Sacramento and talking to a lot of elected officials about that aspect of what we do and how it is different. As one of the largest providers of Medicaid services in our communities, we estimate that the H.R. 1 will result annually in lost Medicaid funding. Here in California, Providence, California, changes to Medicaid eligibility and enrollment will result in an estimated annual loss of 96 to 120 million beginning in 2026. Limit the longer-term aspect of it. Payment programs result in another 20 million annual loss beginning in 2028. A huge part, one of our areas, one of mine in my service area is out in Apple Valley, the high desert. That hospital survives on that provider tax. They really serve an unbelievable community and are doing a great job out there. But here again, in California District 49 and 47, the U.S. Congress Joint Economic Committee estimates that same number I referenced, but breaking it apart, 34,022 in District 47, 49,280 people in District 49 will lose health care coverage. So H.R. 1 is a tipping point to a larger trend in healthcare, pushing us to transform, which we know we need to do. Healthcare is always we absolutely need to transform as an industry. I know a healthcare leader that doesn't realize that has to occur. But underscoring that urgency to do it for our long-term sustainability is all going to be expedited. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Great job. Thank you. I want to personally thank Brian and thank Mission Hospital in particular. Hopefully my folks would not mind my personally thanking you. Both of them, they're doing great. Both of them had to go to Mission Hospital for different things over the last few years, and you took exceptional care of both of them, and I'm very grateful. And you do great stuff. And the other thing I will just say is, when you think about the excuse or the rationale that I have heard from a lot of folks on the other side as they were passing this bill, and I heard, 25, 30 hours worth of debate from the other side. You heard a ton about waste, fraud, and abuse. All they're doing is cracking down on waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, I want to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. You all want to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. But all the independent studies that have really kicked the tires on this bill, for example, Kaiser Family Foundation came out and said 92% of the people whose health care are going to be cut as a result of this bill are people who are eligible for the programs. They meet all the criteria for those program requirements, but they do not have the paperwork properly filled out. The bureaucracy, the red tape, it's actually being designed to prevent them from continuing in these programs. And we know that. We have the hard data because they've tried it. In Arkansas, they've tried it, and most everybody that's been off the programs are people who are eligible for the programs, but no longer fill out the paperwork. So look, this is, I mean, that's basically what we're talking about. And we're talking about, with regard to the hospitals, I have heard, I will say what Brian cannot, which, and God willing, this will not happen to any of our local hospitals, but many hospitals across the United States will close as a result of the provider taxes being cut from 6% to 3.5% between now and 2031. By 2031, you're going to see hospitals all across this country that will close. And the Senate tried to throw in some language, a emergency fund for the rural hospitals. It's too little, too late, and hospitals all across the United States will close. So that's a lot of unhappy stuff. My goodness. But I really want to thank them. First of all, can we thank them for their expertise? So with that, Kyle, we're going to turn to your questions. If you have any healthcare questions, hospital questions, food assistance questions, I am deferring to them.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our presenters. Really appreciate that. If you can see me over here on the left side, this is where you're going to line up if your name is. And some of you asked different questions. Try to keep it just one question each, but we'll try to hit every topic we can with the time we've got left here. Sanford Chan, please come on over here. Rachel Figueroa Mulaney. Rachel. Matt Bruce, yeah, you're right here. Matt Bruce, come on over as well. So let's get our first three. We'll call three more, as many as we can get to in the time we have. And first up, please, Sanford. Would you want to remember your question?
Hello. And I will assume you're from Laguna Niguel unless you tell me otherwise. Hi.
Yes, I'm Sanford Shannon from Laguna Niguel.
Excellent.
And my basic question is just that we have a social security problem that is looming in probably in 2035.
Yeah.
And I know that from a bipartisan point of view that it's desirable to have this settled for future generations, but why is there never any interest, seemingly from the public and even in general from Congress, to deal with this issue that is very fixable?
Yeah, there is for me, I will tell you. So it is a big challenge, and the finances of Social Security have been made worse by this bill. On top of everything else, the accelerant of, could be a couple years. You know, you hear 7 years, you hear 10 years of how long it's going to be until we are really in big trouble with regard to the Social Security Trust Fund. So my solution to it, and I'm not alone in this, is that we have a bill, Social Security 2100, that would basically say, you all know that payroll taxes are paid on roughly the first $175,000 of income, and that's it, right? So you could make $175,000, you could make $175 million, and you still pay the same exact amount in payroll taxes. And to me, that's just not fair. So all the Social Security 2100 Act does, it says you pay up to that first $175,000, which is adjusted for inflation. Then you don't pay between $175,000 and $400,000, and then you pay on everything up over $400,000. That's it. You do that one thing, you fix Social Security through the end of the century. You do. Now, the other side will say, oh my God, this is horrible. It's a massive, what are you doing? And it's just about fairness. It's about basic fairness. And this is, one of the things that really drives me nuts is when we hear our social safety net programs referred to as entitlement. This is insurance. We all pay into the system. It's insurance right in the acronym. So give me a break. We can fix this. By the way, if we do that Social Security 2100 bill, not only could we keep the program solvent, we could increase benefits over time. We could cover more things. We could adjust for actual costs of living. So that's the approach that I would take. Now, I am not naive about this. I know that My colleagues across the aisle aren't going to go for it. I think we have around 200 co-sponsors of the bill. But my hope is sometimes in Congress it takes a looming disaster to get everybody off their rear end. But I'm going to keep at it. And on this one, we've got to hold hands and jump, and we've got to get this done. Because the consequence of inaction is catastrophic, unacceptable, irresponsible. And I think many of you here would be the first to call my office if that were, an even closer looming disaster. So I thank you for the question. We're going to keep at it. Thank you. Hi there.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you so much. Congressman, my name is Rachel Figueroa Malain. I am from Laguna Niguel. I had some concerns about the seeming federalization of law enforcement across cities that are deemed blue, if you will. And I want to know what is being done, in the House on how these might be curtailed and, even ICE incursions for that.
Yeah.
As an aside, I am a federal employee. I work for Homeland Security. I do not work for ICE.
Rachel's got guts right now.
I know, watch me get, pummeled as I
Thank
leave
you.
here. I work on the immigration side of the House.
Yeah.
We're the folks who provide benefits legally,
Yeah.
right? These are not goodie bags that we're giving out, but this is very concerning. Both my husband and I are immigrants to this country.
Yeah.
My husband is originally from Ireland. He came here through the diversity visa program. I don't know why they were considered diverse, but there you go. And it was because I married him that I got my immigration benefits. But
Gotcha.
yeah, so it is a privilege for me to work as a federal employee, but it is very concerning that, this is happening in this country.
Thank you. No, thank you for your work. Thank you for your work. First of all, it's been a rough 8 months, 9 months for federal employees writ large, and I thank you so much for the incredible work that you do. For what it's worth, we have so much that we have to do to support our federal employees, particularly after everything that, remember Doge and all that. Seems like Doge is in the rearview mirror. Elon's not in favor anymore, but they went in with a horrible cut first, ask questions later that might work great for Elon in a startup environment, but it works lousy in the federal government. And they were going after people who were on probation because they were just promoted. So in the federal government, you get probationary status. So they're on probation, so then they're shown the door. This is insane. The high performers shown the door. You're asked the 5 questions every week about what did you do to justify your job. So it's no way to treat our federal workforce who are doing a great job. Now, to your question, I too am incredibly concerned about this, and I believe that a lot of what we're seeing goes right up to the line of violating what's called the Posse Comitatus Act, which basically says that federal troops, whether they be Marines or sailors, soldiers, whomever, cannot conduct domestic law enforcement unless there is a specific declaration of an insurrection under the Insurrection Act. There has been no declaration of the Insurrection Act because there is no insurrection. There was no insurrection in Los Angeles. There is no insurrection in Washington, D.C. There is definitely no insurrection in Laguna Niguel. That I can assure you. So why are we seeing all these federal law enforcement? Many of them are going right up to the line of conducting domestic civilian law enforcement. Now, somewhere around here are our sheriffs. They do a heck of a job conducting domestic civilian law enforcement. They also receive an incredible amount of training to do domestic civilian law enforcement. Our Marines, for example, I am very honored to represent the Marines and sailors on Camp Pendleton. And they are the best of the best at warfighting, at defending our freedom and our democracy from foreign and domestic enemies. But that is not this. This is very, very different. This is civilian law enforcement, and they're not trained for it. And behind closed doors, they've told me so, that they're not trained for it. Our National Guard, they're not interested, many of them, in what they're being asked to do. The Marines, for example, that were sent to LA, they got 4 days of training in things like civil unrest and crowd control. 4 days. Think of that. You think that you can do civilian law enforcement in 4 days? Ask the sheriffs if they can do civilian law enforcement in 4 days. They can't. So what are we doing about it in Congress? There's legislation, there's litigation, and there's communication. First, on legislation, we may have to revisit and rewrite the Posse Comitatus Act. Now, that's not going to happen with Republicans in charge. Republicans aren't going to do anything to upset this president. But if Democrats are so fortunate, we are going to try, and I'd love to think that there are a few good Republicans as well that would work with us on revising the Posse Comitatus Act, tightening it up, clarifying that this, in fact, does cross that line, and defining very clearly where that line is, where civilian law enforcement begins and where military defense really ends as far as the mission. Second, on litigation, the state of California and many other jurisdictions, they are suing. And I'm part of amicus briefs, basically Friends of the Court briefs. I'm part of about 15 of them right now, where we write our supportive legal arguments, and those arguments have been used in multiple court cases, and we are winning. We are winning in many of these court cases, and we'll continue to win in many of these court cases. The law is on our side on this one, and I truly believe that if this particular issue makes its way, gets adjudicated all the way to the Supreme Court, we'll see what happens, of course, but I think they will clarify Posse Comitatus, and that may be helpful. It genuinely may be helpful. The last thing I'll say, communication. Well, what we're doing is we are demanding answers. Continue to demand answers from everybody from the Secretary of Defense. By the way, we wrote Secretary of Defense, we got an out of office. I'm not making it up. We wrote his legislative liaison on this particular thing. We got an out of office. But we do communicate with the Marine Corps and the Navy and the Army and the Guard and so forth. And a lot of them, again, privately, if you know people in National Guard, you know Marines, you know sailors or soldiers, ask them what they think. Ask them what they really think. And I will tell you that they didn't sign up for this, most of them. So we're just going to keep at it as best we can, knowing that it's not all going to go away tomorrow. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what they're doing in D.C. is unique. D.C. is a unique situation, but the president really can only do that for 30 days, absent Congress providing the opportunity to extend that. And guess what? We aren't going to. We aren't going to. Certainly not any of us that are experiencing in Southern California what we're seeing. So I thank you again for your federal service. Keep the fight. Try to stay as positive as you can and tell everybody there that we appreciate them. Thank you. Hi.
I'm Matt Bruce. I live here in Laguna Niguel.
Great.
Kind of a two-part question.
Yep.
I'd like to understand your position on redistricting in California.
Oh, yes, that. Redistricting.
And if the Democrats regain control of the House in 2026, what are the plans being made to restore control of tariffs back to Congress where they belong? Cut funding for all the agencies and departments, including the White House, that are engaged in illegal activities, and restore funding for the programs like we talked about earlier for healthcare and energy subsidies that were cut in the current regime's last law.
Great. So, my goodness. Let me unpack that. Let me do the tariffs and the spending first and then the redistricting, okay? So on tariffs, we already have the legislation that's been introduced that we will enact. If we have the House and Senate, and we would need the White House too, because the president isn't going to give away tariffs via legislation. You know that. So the House and Senate, we have the bills that would tighten up, because the president's using the national emergency definition and statutes as a justification for the tariffs. I think in time that's going to be decided against the president, that he's doing that. But long term, we need to tighten that up too, and we have legislation to do it. If we had White House, we could, I think, get that done. I can tell you that tariffs are, I think everybody knows by now, a tax on all of us. We are the ones that bear the cost. Either that or American businesses eat the cost. General Motors ate $1.1 billion in profit just in the last quarter. Ford, I think, was $800 billion. So if you're a corporation, and we have businesses, we visited all these businesses in our district, and all of a sudden they get an extra $1 million bill that they weren't expecting. So they have to make decisions. Do they reduce headcount? Do they increase prices? Or some combination thereof? Because when you eat the tariff, that means you have to, you got to do something to make it up somewhere, right? And so this is really, really bad. This means jobs being lost. This means American consumers paying the bill. At the very time the president ran on reducing costs, he's increasing them via tariffs. As it pertains to funding and things that are illegal, well, guess what? If we have control of the House, we will have oversight again, real, actual, transparent, accountable oversight over the administration. We will ask the tough questions. We will subpoena documents and witnesses as necessary. And on the Appropriations Committee, with oversight responsibility over the federal government's spending, I will absolutely make sure that if we see any illegal activity, that we will hold those to account who conducted such activity, and that'll be reflected in the ongoing funding decisions. For example, why are we giving $60 billion in additional funding to ICE right now? Why are we giving another $100 million to OMB and Russ Vote? How are they going to spend those funds? We need to hold all of them to account. And then finally, on the redistricting. So you should know a couple things. Number one, in 2019, when I first got to Congress, and 2021, I voted on legislation to create a national independent redistricting standard across the United States. I still believe that's the right thing to do. I think we should have national independent redistricting. I think California was right to create the Independent Redistricting Commission as it exists. But we have a real problem here, which is that Texas and maybe some other states are going to run afoul of the Voting Rights Act and are going to go through the worst partisan gerrymander in our lifetimes, really, and I don't say that lightly. And so these are not normal times. So what California voted on, what the legislature voted on today, is a temporary, one-time replacement or substitution for the commission with a map that abides by the standards and the requirements, not only of the Voting Rights Act, but also of the commission. So the map that we have out there that the public has now seen actually adheres to Article 2 of the Voting Rights Act and would stand up in court. The one that Texas just passed, forget about it. They literally said, the governor and others said, that the point of the Texas map, the point was to maximize the partisanship of those districts. Whereas the point of the California map that you all get to vote on is absolutely is whether or not we can still adhere to the Voting Rights Act and draw a map that is more reflective and has an equal level playing field in a fair fight. That's it. It's just about a fair fight. And I know that they have Arnold Schwarzenegger saying it's bad. Well, we have Barack Obama on our side of this. I'll take President Obama over the governor. The last thing I'll say is that I still support and I will advocate for, and if we have the opportunity and we get at some point in my career, again, the House, the Senate, and the White House, this time we pass and get signed a new law, national independent redistricting, once and for all, and maybe this will be that kick in the pants where people will be willing to do it. It fell short in the Senate last time, right? We had the opportunity in 2019, it fell short in the Senate, and maybe this time will be different. But right now we're left with no good options, no good options. And so I think this is the least bad of them, and the voters will have a say. Thank you.
There's a little less than 10 minutes left. So I'll call two more. Molly Burkett, Roland Serta. Molly Burkett, Roland Serta. If you're still here, please come on over.
We got to get a question or two for our guests, too. I feel that we can't leave them out.
Hi. Hi, Mike. Thank you
Hi,
so
how are you?
much. Okay, so mine is I'm asking your opinion.
Okay.
On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being no problem and 10 being, you're petrified, how concerned are you that our democracy is going to make it through this administration?
Oh. Well, so I'm very concerned. I haven't thought about putting a specific number value on it. That's a tough question. What I would tell you is that we've been through tough things before as the United States of America. We've been through tough challenges and times. We've always emerged stronger from those challenges, and I remain cautiously optimistic that in the long run, it's going to be a tough, short, tough 2.5, 3 years here. But in the long run, I do think we'll emerge from this stronger and better, and I really mean that. I still fundamentally believe in this country that my grandpa fought for, that my other grandparents on my mom's side immigrated to, that I get to serve now as a member of the House. And I believe that I'm raising my kids, and hopefully you all think this too, in a great, great place that we all want to do all we can to not only to protect, but to strengthen. And so I think part of it starts with folks like us. Just the fact that you're here and that you care and that you're civically engaged. I think a lot of people are banking on the fact that people aren't going to pay attention. You're going to be losing the institutions of democracy. We had a brilliant presentation from a pollster named David Shore recently, and he's a young guy, but he's a brilliant pollster, and he said, the worst way that you could go about protecting democracy is to only talk about protecting democracy. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because at the end of the day, you have to appeal to what people are seeing and feeling in their day-to-day lives, whether it's the increasing costs or whether it's the availability of housing or the availability of affordable groceries or whatever it may be. And I will give the president a great deal of credit. I disagree completely with his diagnosis or with his prescription, but I agree with the diagnosis on costs. He spoke a ton about costs and about inflation. Now, of course, his prescription is the tariffs, which I couldn't disagree with any more than that. But we should be talking about things that actually impact people's lives, which is why I wanted to bring folks today to talk about healthcare, hospitals, and food, everything that each of us cares about. So I would just encourage you, don't be afraid to talk to your neighbors. Don't be afraid to engage in conversation. Know the facts, tell the truth, be kind to one another, and still believe in the promise of working together and trying to make this a better country. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Congressman.
Hi.
I actually did some phone banking for your re-election
Thank
campaign
you.
last year.
Give us your name. Give us your name.
It's good to see you again. I met you last year, last summer around this time.
Thank you. Thank you.
So my question is, well, before I really get to my question, it's similar to what the previous question was about. I think that there's a lot more that needs to be done to fix our democracy. It's not just about Democrats taking control of the House, which, by the way, Republicans are going to try to redistrict in Texas, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri. So even if California is able to succeed, there's still more seats that Republicans can take over, and it's possible that they can still eke out a close victory in the House. On top of that, there's the Senate too, which there are only 2 seats that Democrats have a strong chance of taking over. The rest are going to have to win in states that Trump won by double digits.
Yep.
The thing is, there's other things that Democrats need to be doing. It goes much deeper. There is the Electoral College. There's our campaign finance system.
Yep.
We need more reforms such as ranked choice voting. We need to, I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing with trying to pass legislation to end gerrymandering nationwide with independent redistricting commissions. Can you get Republicans to help you with that? Because there are Republicans in blue states who I don't think want to be gerrymandered.
Right.
You
would think that they would, and I've had conversations with some, and what they'll tell you quietly and privately is that they agree on a lot of things. I had one very senior Republican. I had an amendment that I brought up on the power of the purse, on the Article 1 power of the purse, and every Republican on the Appropriations Committee voted against reaffirming the power of the purse, even though there's a plaque with Article 1 at the front of the room under the dais with Article 1 and the power of the purse right there. They wouldn't reaffirm it. And one of them came up to me later and said, this is a very the big player in Trump world also, said, I agree with you on this. I said, well, why didn't you vote for the amendment? He goes, you don't understand. No, well, that's a good guess. But what he told me was more concerning than that. He said, you got to understand that nobody has our back as rank and file members of the House Republican Conference if we get sideways with this administration on anything. Mike Johnson doesn't have our back. Mike Johnson will side with Trump. So it's a product, it's a function in part of Kevin McCarthy getting thrown out. Everybody remembers that? Seems like history now. Everybody remembers, but it wasn't that long ago. Kevin McCarthy was ousted by 8 Republicans and all the Democrats. And when he was ousted, Mike Johnson was not the first or second or third choice. He was the 4th choice. And all Mike Johnson had going for him is that people hated him least. And his whole key has been to the self-preservation has been don't make Trump mad. Do whatever Trump wants. You all see it. You understand it. He's the weakest speaker in modern American history, maybe ever in American history. But the key to his remaining in power is doing whatever Trump wants. So if you're a rank and file member and you know better and you want to say something, but you don't, it's because you know that Mike Johnson won't have your back, and Steve Scalise won't have your back, and Tom Emmer won't have your back. None of them will have your back against Trump. And I never once worried. I spoke out time to time against the Biden administration. I did. You can go back and you can look it up yourself. I never worried for a second that our House Democratic leadership would think less of me because I did what I thought was right, or I thought our constituents best served our constituents. And that is a fundamental difference. So I can't fix that overnight, but I tell you that because I want you to understand, and I want you to walk a little bit in my shoes and see what I hear, or hear what I hear. So again, this is really tough stuff. We can't fix this overnight, but I do think post-2029, if we are successful in the next couple of election cycles, if it's a fair fight in 26, I think we're going to be very successful. I think the same is true in 2028. And then I think in 2029, maybe some of those Republican members will all of a sudden have a change of heart. And you know what? I am okay with that. Plenty of room in the tent. I mean that. So that's a great question. Thank you for that question. Thank you so much. So before we wrap, a quick reminder, I want you, if you haven't, please follow us on social media at Rep. Mike Levin across all the social media platforms for updates. You can always go to our website, levin.house.gov. You'll find an interactive map, as I mentioned, of all the federal resources we've secured for our district. Never hesitate to reach out to any of our folks in our office, and they're all here around the room. Please speak to them. Can you guys raise your hands again? Thank you. Speak to one of them if you have any federal issue. We love helping. If it's the IRS, if it's veterans benefits, if it's Social Security, whatever it may be, we'd love to be able to help. We have an office not far in Dana Point at the Dana Point Civic Center. If we can be of assistance there, we're here to serve you. I'm going to close with this. And I thought about what I wanted to say, and I wanted to focus on something that makes me sad, and that there's so many lies in our politics today, right? And for me, it's very, very frustrating. But for me, one lie stands out above them that I think is more damaging than other. And it's that our country and our system is irrevocably broken, that we can never fix it, that America is hopelessly divided. I don't think we are. I don't think we are. I think that at the end of the day, when you look at the facts, Americans overwhelmingly agree on a ton of things. They agree that no one should lose their health care, that no one should lose their Social Security, we should keep our communities safe, we should protect our democracy, we should give every child a fair shot, that prescription drugs shouldn't bankrupt a family, that our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our water systems need to be strong and safe. None of this is partisan, right? It's all just basic common sense. But too often what I have seen is that the loudest voices in Washington, the ones who are given the most airtime by the media, are the ones who try to pit us against one another. But what I will say, and this is now from 7 years of doing this, in our district, across this country, I believe, and I have the most evidence in our district, most everybody wants the same things. They want safe neighborhoods, they want security, they want affordable health care, affordable living, period. And they want a government that works for them, not for special interests. And look, I mentioned at the outset, my grandpa fought against authoritarianism in World War II. And I honor him Every day. I was very, very blessed that I was very close with my grandpa. I honor him every day by not using this microphone to tear each other to shreds, but to try to bring people a little bit together, a little bit more together. That's what he would want. And I just encourage everybody that I think it's our responsibility, all of us, it's our responsibility to do what we can to try to bring people a little bit together rather than further apart. So I just implore us, put community over division, put truth over lies. You're all smart folks. You can read. Like, you can figure out the facts yourself, and people will listen to you, and I hope they'll believe what you have to say. I think if we begin to do that, then there's more than just a little bit of hope. Then I really think that there is a stronger future for this country. I really, really believe that, and I hope you do too. So the fact that you're here tonight, that you care enough to be here on a weekday, even though it's really hot outside, nice air conditioning in here, tells me that you want to be part of the solution, right? And you live in a community here in Laguna Niguel that is divided right down the middle. Stephanie can tell you that. So I just encourage you, be kind to your neighbors, listen to them, don't judge, try to do what you can to work together as best you can, and we'll make this a better community and ultimately a better country. So I thank you for coming. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. I'm sorry.